All right, all right. We're now going live. Welcome to Dorsey's Resource Channel. Welcome, welcome, welcome. First, as usual, before we get started, I'd like to give a disclaimer. This video is going to be for educational, entertainment, and informational purposes only. Please understand everyone's individual circumstance or situation may be different. It's up to every individual competent person to please do his or her homework and research regarding the matter being discussed. This information is not to be construed as legal advice. In the event you feel you need to seek a competent professional, it is encouraged that you do so at one's own leisure. Dorsey's Resource Channel is not liable or responsible for anyone's misuse of the information. Please keep in mind these are simply my opinions on the topic. Everyone is responsible for their own commercial affairs. With that being said, all rights are reserved. Now, the topic of this video is going to be, do the passport stars mean anything? Question mark plus Q&A. We'll throw Q&A in, depends on how many people we get in. But the title of this video, I wanted to briefly talk about, do the passport stars mean anything? I was listening recently to a seminar or a webinar, I should say, that someone had sent that I had requested and looking for some information that I had came across. And this was one of the questions that was posed to this particular group. And I want to say this group, there's many out there that are studying this type of information now. This group I just discovered not too long ago. I didn't know anything about them. They're absolutely phenomenal. Um, and very highly accurate. One of the I don't know if I want to say their leader or the person that they study under, who's very knowledgeable, appears she has moderators, contributors. She has a phenomenal wealth of knowledge, phenomenal skill set. So in no way, shape, or form am I trying to overstep her or go above the information. But I thought I could provide some insight, because I think the way the sister answered this question in regards to this brother, she said, and I've heard this from other people in the past. She said the stars they don't mean anything, and I want to tell you that's actually not true. That's inaccurate. And I have a private source, by the way, and you guys, some of you all that know that I was working with Lady Tech, Lady B, behind the scenes. For example, you can ask her not too long ago to show evidence uh, as going into right before the new year, towards the end of last year. I believe that was the date we recorded a private webinar, and it was about 4 hours with one of my most elite sources, by the way, who was able to confirm, because Lady Tech, or some as Lady B, she's been around for a while in the movement. Big shout out to her, very knowledgeable. And I want to say on a side note that this source that I had, I wanted to show evidence, show proof. So I asked them, and we were fortunately we were able to arrange a time. And this source stays busy just like I do. And we were able to figure out how to work out a time to basically arrange a private meeting on her platform, a coffee university, a city on the hill university. That's an acronym for, by the way, the school that she has set up, that also Dave McDowell does classes over there, who used to work with Yusufville. And I believe she used to work with Yusuf, and she used to work with Brett Jones, aka Eon, by the way, in case many of you all are not aware. She's been in the movement very long time, very knowledgeable, and I would say she's more advanced than myself when it pertains to the court information and things, and some of the A for V processes that still do actually work. By the way, even though I've come across some new information that I'm still researching, learning about, that is phenomenal. Because I've said in my previous videos, there are talented people out here who are very skilled. But I just wanted to add, the title of this video was, do the passport stars mean anything? And I'm going to say yes, they do. Even though this sister, she was addressing this question from this particular brother, yes, they really do mean, they have a significance. And I asked my source about it again. I brought this to their attention, and I won't go into more details. That we were going over some information, by the way, and I won't go into details about that because I don't want to reveal too much of what that may be. But he reiterated to me privately again that they do mean something. The State Department by the way, as you're transitioning to become private, or many of you that are familiar with status correction, aka sovereignty, redemption education, knows that you will be aware, because there's many that have talked about. I haven't really covered the passport process because I haven't simply done it yet. I'm not going to cover something I haven't done yet, but I do know about it. I've known about it for a number of years, and I've actually known about the how some people were using it as a shortcut years ago to a form to get on the do not detain list, or semi do not detain list. And what's going on, those stars actually have a caste system attached, associated with it, by the way. So I had even known before, I know many of you are familiar with James's channel, that he actually did a video. This was a while ago. If you go on YouTube, it says 5-star passport info breakdown of each level. He said someone from the government sent it to him anonymously. What I remember when I watched the video, and I could actually confirm, just piggybacking, using this as a point of reference, that this is not just coming from myself. This is someone whose channel he's now his channel is larger than my channel. He's done a phenomenal job over where he's at, what he's doing. But I just wanted to provide some more insight, that someone he mentioned in this video had sent him information that worked in the government, said they do have a significance. And what my source told me privately, to make a long story short, it's just three stars, to keep it simple, means that's what majority of people receive that are doing business and corporate contracts, that are not aware of the private sector, that are operating as statutory U.S. citizens. And you guys know that is not only a jurisdictional term, and you guys give up jurisdiction through contracts. In case you're not aware, you have to research this. Some people, this may be foreign knowledge to them, but those stars on there, if it's the passport card, I think I looked at a friend of mine's passport booklet, and he told me at the time he was unaware, and I just wanted to confirm at the time. I was in his basement, and I noticed, I assumed he had 3 stars. And if you go online and you look up even a lot of the templates, the majority of people have 3 stars, and there's a reason, because they're doing business as a U.S. Citizen. Now, when you have 4 stars, my source informed me, and the State Department, by the way, this is a fact. I had this confirmed from high up from my source. This is highly accurate and very credible individual, and that's why I told the story. Once again, if you're wondering, when we did a private webinar with Lady B, it's actually in my back office. By the way, I wasn't able to download it. I have to ask Lady Tech about that, because my source said he wanted a copy of the full session that we did, by the way, because she does different types of classes over there and has a school set up. So I just wanted to show that we have evidence behind, and I'm just piggybacking off reference because my source wants to be private. Some people that are advanced, they don't want to show their faces, they don't want to do YouTube, and I do understand. I have to respect their privacy as well as others, and I do. Certain individuals, I've never share their names or who they are or whatnot. But to make a long story short, he stated to me recently that the 4 stars means that you may still have some contracts that are still lingering, but you've done certain things that you're practicing. They call limited contacts, because what many don't understand is when you get involved in these contracts, there's a form where you, for example, the word legal originates in the idea of being connected to a legal system by contract. The connection is created when you give consent, by consent. So what is to be legal becomes law by that consent. And one of the essential ingredients of that consent is mutual consideration, whether by application or indulgence. A person may not be aware of this. They may waive certain rights naturally inherent in the individual and become obligated to abide by that contract that they were unaware that they entered into by the administration of another authority. Covenants, contracts are of the same order. You also have quasi contracts, which are lawful, purely voluntary acts of man, from which their results can be any obligation, whatever, to a third party. Sometimes reciprocal obligation between the parties. Black's Law, third edition, page 425. Look up quasi contracts, by the way, because many don't understand how this works. Those stars are not there just to look pretty. They do have a meaning of significance, by the way. But the reason the majority of people get 3 stars because they're doing business as a U.S. citizen. U.S. person is also synonymous with U.S. citizen, even though they play a word play with the definitions. But U.S. person and U.S. citizen, you have to be careful of U.S. person as well, because when you're trying to transition and properly correct your status, they use trickery and deception, and that's one of the things I admire. That this sister who exited the matrix is all the way out, that is like the head administrator over this particular group that I discovered. They do a phenomenal job, by the way. But I got a hold of one of their other webinars from a private source, and I noticed someone had asked the question, do the stars mean anything? This is the reason why I decided to do this video. I thought this may be a good topic, but don't take my word for what I say. Like I said, to reiterate, I give a disclaimer, but make sure you do your research. But to mention what I mentioned earlier, James C. Lovett's channel, by the way, he did a video you can look up. It was called 5-Star Passport Info Breakdown of each level. And I remember I saw this video and he originally put it out, by the way, because I study other people's content. I'm still a studier myself, not only a content creator, influencer, because there's levels, higher levels that I mentioned to you guys a long time ago that I'm trying to get to. I'm at a certain level already in this. I've been studying this for a number of years, and I've got information now where I'm actually, could be very close to potentially exiting the matrix, by the way. But he mentioned in this previous video, someone from the government, I forget which department he may have mentioned, which department it was, sent him anonymously a breakdown of what the 5 stars actually meant. So they do have a meaning to them, contrary to popular belief. The 3 stars, once again, that means you're acting as a regular U.S. citizen. Majority are unaware. You're doing business in their jurisdiction as a U.S. person. 4-star means you're closer to being out. You may have done things, but it means you still have some contracts that they can see, because my source told me privately. And also, I remember years ago when Jonah Bey and Yusuf El were working together when they were still cool. I believe they have fallen out. I don't think they haven't done any joint webinars anymore, but I do have some old material from them before they had fallen out. They had talked about this on their private calls. They had even discussed how they even traveled through the airport. So a lot of information that's coming out now, I'm already aware of it. And I can actually prove in some instances some older paperwork that I have, like a declaration that I saw recently in a video shared by another channel, that someone was claiming from the birth certificate security. The same source that I have actually came up with the template that was structured very similar. It looked like some people tweaked it, but my source was instrumental in coming out with the template that Jonah Bey actually praised him when him and a couple other another private member of my group a long time ago sent in a donation to do a private session with Jonah. And once he finally got around, because he was very booked up at the time, my source told me he was very impressed and used his declaratory statement, the template, because my source has a very unique skill set. He's very good with document preparation, very assertive when it comes to things like that, and proactive, I would say, more so than myself. Those are things I have to work on with the type of schedule. But he mentioned, to reiterate, that the 4-star means you are close. You don't have the full 5-star, of course, is diplomatic immunity, by the way. That's where you're out. But even with the 4-star, something else, here's another bombshell I'm going to get to before I forget. He mentioned this when we recorded the private webinar, that Lady Tech can actually prove, if she's still in here, she can confirm. I haven't been able to download it in my my part of the server. I was going to have to ask her. Had some maybe some tech difficulty, by the way, but we went about 4 hours, and he gave a testimony. It was called Passport Testimony, where he told his story privately, because I wanted to, show evidence to someone else, another credible source out there, so you guys wouldn't just be hearing this from me, by the way. But reason I'm referencing Lady B, Lady Tech, she can vouch for me that this was real. And this individual shared how even with the 4 stars that they had, they didn't have the complete 5 stars. There was privilege amenities that came with that. Higher up, by the way, they mentioned a story where they were at a particular place of travel. They were getting ready to board, and the person came over. The person that worked there for this particular government agency looked at their ticket and said, "Hey, based on this, you're supposed to be in this other line." And he says it was no one in this particular line at the time. And then when I recall some years ago, the last time that I remember that I flown, I remember seeing this other line, and I was wondering back then, years ago, I almost actually started to go on that line, by the way, because this was something I had suspected years ago. I had to fly, and the most times in my life, and the only times pretty much in 2009. Well, I shouldn't say the only time because I've been to Puerto Rico before many years ago. That's neither here nor there. But the year of 2009 was very significant because there was a private, you guys may know about a private event that I attended where we had to meet these prerequisite qualifications. And part of them was you had to meet by attending these particular seminars that were at different events. And there were other requirements that were requested as well before you would go through to lead up to where, I got the that B card, etc. But I remember back then, because in some instances, one of the times I remember we had to take separate flights from other people that I knew who were involved because many were on different time frames. We had to schedule time off from our jobs. Working the trials of Job job is just over broke. Many of you all know, about working. I'm still working the trials of Job, believe it or not. But I do have some information now. By the way, it's going to take some time because it's a bit overwhelming for me. But I've been working the trials of Job for many years. I was really close to exiting the matrix, really, really close at one time. And I won't go into all the details, but you all know that I'm kind of speaking in code, that event that I attended some years ago. And I'm just referencing to when this individual told their testimony that they just still have 4 stars at the time. And that can be changed. There's a way to do certain things when you're in the process of correcting your status and you want the full all the way out. You want to get completely out and get at the right level. I came across even new information, and there's different processes out there too that do work. You just have to understand and understand who you're dealing with. And I can, from the experience I have from studying this information officially since 2004, I can distinguish between different people out there who do teach this type of information, people who are credible, even some that charge a significant portion. Does not mean that they're not legit, but sometimes you have to figure out, and I know it can be difficult because this type of information is unconventional, by the way, and some people have been scammed in the past, or people have paid hundreds of dollars, and some people didn't have the right level of education they need because it takes a lot of research, it takes a lot of discipline and due diligence. And that's something nowadays with people having busy lives with families, especially having children or working, can take away a lot of your time, especially when you're working the trials of Job. By the way, it can be very difficult. Oh, I see Lady Tech in the chat says says I'll link a copy to you. I remember that call. Oh yeah, thank you, Lady B, for if you can share that, greatly appreciate, because I had for months I couldn't get it for whatever reason. The server that she has over there, I'm still, was learning. There was other videos. We had done joint collaborations with other prominent people privately, by the way, who are, I would say, knowledgeable or part of an elite group, part of elite groups out there that we network with. She's been able to network with already. Like I said, she has a lot of experience in this movement. Just because you guys, sometimes we don't show our paperwork, sometimes we don't show our faces, doesn't mean, certain processes or certain things don't work. But we do is we work to also gather the information, update you guys sometimes on what things work or what may not work, what is useful. And she's one of the sources that contacted me that let me know years ago what people were doing incorrectly when it came to the A4V process. Because I had said years ago, I had some subscribers that asked me about that. And I said I hadn't used that method in years. And I guess and it still works for people, by the way. So I see a message where Lady Tech says at Dorsey's Resource, I just sent you a playback link to your personal email. Okay, I will check that out. Appreciate that, Lady Tech. Definitely when I get off, I will take a look at that. And if you're still up, I may try to reach out. I have forgot when we spoke the other day, you mentioned about trying to connect. So I haven't forgot. It's just I've been normally I rest up on my off days because you guys know I'm still on the graveyard shift. I'm working the trials of Job, and it's I mentioned in a previous video what I'm kind of going through is different than what other employees or other workers are. My boss's operations manager for this security company that my schedule, it seems like there's always something new that's changing where I've tried to get a consistent schedule down. And I've just got to a point where I said I had to say to myself, I have an exit plan. Hopefully, in the near future, I won't be at this job anymore. By the way, I am progressing, working towards that, where I can get out of working the trials of Job because I've been doing this for a number of years, and I was already really, really close many years ago. I can prove, I can send you guys the documents, I can prove it. If you guys want to see it, I don't have no problem because I didn't return to that particular event. I didn't want to come back because of what I dealt with and what they were just, it was so dirty. You guys, many of you already know the story, so I won't go down that rabbit hole anymore. I won't go over that because that just can just create negative energy, and I'm not trying to have negative. I'm trying to be basically stay positive, but I know I feel it in my heart. I will not be at this job that much longer down in the near future. Hopefully, this will be my last year sometime. I want to put in a 2-week notice. I didn't want to just leave them hanging when things or whatever come through, but I am working on a massive exit strategy. It's become to the point almost literally like a rescue plan because they're doing me dirty where I'm at. I don't really discuss this with you guys because I don't want to sound negative, but my supervisor said something to me, called me a high performing individual, but there's a lot of labor laws and things many of these companies are violating. And I was going to do a separate video in this type of career field that I work in because I saw a guy in England. He did a video. I thought about this idea why people are leaving the medical field. For example, like nursing, doctors are leaving. He used to be a doctor or worked in that field. So I wanted to do a video about why people are leaving the security field or policing, by the way, which is a lower level, lower form of law enforcement. But it appears as though a lot of these companies cannot retain, they can't keep people. So I've been going through a lot more, even though I make a little bit more money, it's still chump change compared to what my real worth, my real value is because I'm a hard worker. My relatives can now see this. When they sometimes have quoted this, I had to explain to them for a number of years when I had difficulty trying to get time off for holidays, even funerals and stuff like that. Because that's when a lot of in this type of industry, a lot of clients need security is around the time of the holidays or whatever. And then because there's a shortage of people, and then there's people quitting all the time, and it's just, I have seniority, and that's not right to just be doing somebody. But I've just been dealing with it because, like I say, I don't want to be negative, and I don't want that you guys to get that energy. So I'm a fighter. I'm fighting through this, but I'm staying positive because I know, I believe in my heart I'm not going to be there. And even if I have to leave and go somewhere else to a different company, because I've also received offers by other security companies. By the way, it's a competitive industry now. One company, I have a friend works for another company, and originally I turned it down. They offered me $17 an hour, which is $1 more than what I make at 16, and then they upped it to 18. By the way, the reason I didn't take that position, it was still that particular job was still a graveyard shift, a night position. But I didn't like the way the hours were set up. But then I got some other offers as well, and I also have a connect with a former friend that has a black-owned security company that even offered for me to come back and kind of make side hustle money, which I did at one time. By the way, so I'm in demand, by the way, but where I'm at may not be worth it. What I'm putting in, I'm at the point now similar to like NBA players or professional athletes and contracts. For my value for what I'm putting in is more consistent than majority of other people, and I think they're taking advantage of that. And that's what's going to eventually cause me to leave. And I took management in college, by the way. believe it or not, in business. And a lot of these corporations, and this is why this corrupt system is set up, by the way, to rape and pillage people and trap them in these contracts, these statutory jurisdictions, so that we have to work, do everything in our power, our best ability to become free, because this system is not designed for us to win. It's very, very corrupt. It's very, very evil. I won't just say it's corrupt. It's, in many instances, it's beyond evil when you get into this. But like I said, I don't want to be negative, but I would just want you guys to be aware that's what I'm going through. And that's sometimes the difficulty why I haven't been able to do videos consistently in the past, because it's like from week to week, my schedule is changing. Even if they hire somebody, and then it's like there's people quitting all of a sudden, and they're expecting to lean on me, and they're trying to use me as like a unofficial fill-in, and that's not right. That's dirty. If they're going to do that, they should up my pay, increase my pay even more. But I just said I'm just going to, there's other places that are competitive now that are paying more. And they're just going to lose me, by the way, just like NBA players in basketball. They're being mistreated, like what Kyrie Irving went through, what Kanye is going through with Adidas. That's kind of what I've kind of gone through with my job, by the way. But my value is worth more than that, and my knowledge that I have. I really shouldn't be here anymore. But I just wanted to come before you guys. I don't want to get far from the topic, but I was going over the topic of the video was, do the passport stars mean anything? And I just wanted to give my weigh in, because I was listening to this particular private webinar that was sent to me, as I actually requested, as I sought around different contacts, different sources I had, because I was just very impressed by this sister who came out recently. I won't say her name to protect our identity, because I heard her mention in one of the webinars that I heard that she had said that she had received, she had drones flying around her house, or electronic birds or whatever and stuff, because she had been freeing the people, getting people off court cases and things. She's exited the matrix. It appears as though she has a phenomenal skill set. And I found out about this group, and I said, man, they are bad. They're phenomenal. I mean, it's amazing how so many people have grown nowadays. I'm so happy to see the numbers, the tremendous numbers of people that are waking up. I'm a fan of, I'm going to tell you, be honest with you guys, I still listen to other content creators, other influencers in this type of information, because I've been studying this for a number of years. And I remember years ago, unlike you guys, it was difficult for us to get a hold of really advanced information. Now more people have tried things through trial and error. The information has gotten better. It appears as though information has leaked down from the higher ups, ruling class elite. People have figured things out, by the way. So the information is far, far greater than what it used to be now. So but I just wanted to say I was very impressed. And the reason I'm doing this video, because on this other webinar I listened to, there was a brother who came on there and he asked the question. He said, do the stars on the passport mean anything? And the sister, she said, no, they don't. Now I have to beg to differ. No, they actually do mean something. Once again, the 3 stars means you're still doing business in the jurisdiction as a U.S. citizen. The 4 stars means you are close to being out, but you have some contracts that are still lingering. The State Department, my private source, told me they can actually see, by the way, and I asked them again very recently, they can see your transactions. And this is critical, because this is a form of a caste system. By the way, he also reiterated, and I'm actually reading this in documents, that a lot of these caste systems come out of England. When I attended this private event years ago, they told us privately, like on the DTC forums, some of the older versions would say United Kingdom. And he said, he explained the reason it would say UK, because he said the United States Corporation is a subsidiary out of England. And it's interesting when you find out some of these states are corporations, like the state of Delaware, the state of Maryland. There's a whole history, even with the California Corporation. But the United States, I can prove, and I've talked about this in the past, it's been a while. The United States is a federal corporation pursuant to United States Code Title 28, Section 3002. Look up subsection 15 and read A, B, and C. Once again, this is in reference to the United States is a federal corporation pursuant to Title 28 of the United States Code, Section 3002. Look up subsection 15, A, B, and C. And this unequivocally proved, because someone tried to say some years ago that this was some gobbledygook or this was some sovereign citizen stuff. No, this is in the law. This is not my words. You can look this up legally. So fact check cannot deny this. What I'm going over right now is indisputable. This is a complete, absolute fact. But you have to look this up if you don't believe, if you have doubts. And that's why I give a disclaimer. I tell people in my disclaimer, please do your own homework and your own research. But once again, this proves the United States is a federal corporation pursuant to Title 28 of the United States Code, Section 3002, subsection 15. Look up Section A, B, and C, by the way. So, but there's other information I had gathered. That's the reason I told the story from years ago when I attended that private event. And they told us, so my source was telling me, no, those stars actually do have a symbolism. They do represent something. They're not just sitting on a passport just to look pretty to add additional look to them. They have a meaning, and you're going to see the majority of people have 3 stars. Just if you have some relatives or someone, you can do this test with a friend or family member. If they don't mind, my friend, he allowed me to look at his, and I explained to him privately. He said he was on the fence about this information. I don't know how he feels now, but it was another friend who was there with us, and at the time we were in the basement of his place where he dwells at, his place of dwelling, and I asked him, and I shared it with him. He had the 3 stars, which I suspected, by the way. And so 3 stars means you're still in jurisdiction, you're in contract as a U.S. citizen. 4 stars means you're not completely out. The State Department, my source told me, can still see the transactions. You have some things that are still lingering. And the reason I brought up Jonah and Yusuf, they were discussing years ago on a call about limited contact as well, by the way. And there's a caste system that they have as one is transitioning to make your way out. There's like a semi do not detain list before you get on the full do not detain list. And my source told me prior, back in 2012, I have a story where we were going to the Department of Elections. I told my source at the time, since we were in the area, I wanted to check on my voter registration at the Department of Elections. By the way, it's ironic. I kind of work right across the street from them now, where my headquarters is at, where I have to, interesting, where I have to pick the vehicle up from my current employer. By the way, ironically, I didn't realize it's located in the same area. And I went years ago because a sister who woke me up many years ago was an activist with the Nubian Nation of Moors in the city of Detroit. Her name was Paula. And a friend of mine reminded me that she stated she used to be a Detroit police officer. And she told everyone who would attend these meetings, they were by word of mouth, invitation only. They were activist group working together to help wake people up in our community. And she said, the first thing you all need to do is cancel your voter registration. So that's the first thing I did after I got a hold of the information as soon as possible back then, because she said it was important, and she went into some details. And she also said, don't be an organ donor as well. I forget to mention that if you can help it. I understand some people have medical problems. You're going to have to do something different, maybe a non-UCC to lean your stuff up. By the way, if you have pre-existing conditions or medical problems, I understand everyone's situation is different. And that's part of even in my disclaimer. But she said majority of the people there, she said, you need to cancel your voter registration. And she said, don't click the organ donor box, by the way, because these are adhesion contracts. By the way, these are, if you look up adhesion, I did a video a while ago. I may do another video about this again. And there's documents. If you're smart, you can research online. If I've gone over how to research. I've done a previous video about that. And you can pull some of these same documents up that show evidence, by the way. So, in telling the story, there is a form of a caste system in place. So the 4 stars on the passport, the source told part of their testimony, they were in a line at a federal, basic government facility. They were getting ready to travel, by the way. And they said the staff member who worked there looked at their boarding pass and has stated that at the time they were in a line. He said it was a long line of people, and he was pulled out of line and said, "You're not the person the staff member said, "You're not supposed to be in this line. You're supposed to be in the line over there." And he said, "What line are you talking about?" And he said again, he said, "They said over there." He said, "What line are you talking about?" So it was another area, and I've seen this before when I've been, when I told the story, I traveled many years ago at the airport. Was a metal detector that was parallel as people, people are waiting when they're getting ready to board. And I remember seeing when I traveled some years ago, I remember seeing it was a smaller line. But when I went, I remember actually seeing some people in that line, and I actually started to get in that line years ago because to kind of find out, so I could read between the lines of what my source was telling me, because I had a source that told me I'm very observant in some instances, by the way. So he stated to me in this particular instance, when he was traveling, no one was in this particular line. And he said he felt special. It made him feel special that he was sent over to this other line. Now, my source has also done some things, documents and things with exiting, but he did state that he's aware of the 4 stars, which he has. He has currently a 4-star passport. So this is proof, even with 4 stars, was better than having a 3-star. So there's different levels to the do not detain list. And I said, if you want to properly correct your status, you need to get rid of your voter registration right away. I discovered a lot of people still registered voters. Get rid of that, especially if you're Black, you're African American. Don't be an organ donor. These things are not benefiting us. Behind the scenes, the states are collecting their revenue. They're not being this unjust enrichment. By the way, as misappropriation of funds, because they're tapping into your exemption account. By the way, you should be getting a cut of that. If they at least were going to contract, and they're not even providing full disclosure to you, that's a violation of your due process of law. But if you're not being given disclosure, that's violation of due process. So let me jump to the comment section. Some of you guys I didn't acknowledge. I skipped over. So says nothing can stop at the top. Says what's coming. Says waiting on my passport now. Who I get 5 stars. Okay. Says nothing stop. Says what's coming. Hopes. Okay. You sounds like you say you're still waiting on your passport to come. Twin says peace. Appreciate you joining. Nothing stop. Says what's the name of the group? By the way, for the time being, I'm not going to say, to respect the anonymity. My one of my sources that came to me, the reason I didn't mention the name of that particular group, they're phenomenal, by the way, is my source, who I appreciate, has stated that they are part of I guess part of an elite team. That's all I can say. And I didn't really understand what they were mentioning, but he said originally he had to got permission for me to get a hold of some information, by the way. And that's all I'll leave it at. And I won't say the name because I say he's maybe working with some higher ups behind the scenes. And there's actually someone else he mentioned that has actually someone else who's very knowledgeable that has their own platform that I just was informed that my source was working with as well. So I won't say the names of neither of these groups, none of them, not even the elite groups, which are separate from the other group, by the way, to respect what they're doing. But I found out, and I let individuals out there do their own research, because see, the thing too was when I give you guys information throughout the years, and I had people acknowledge, some people, don't, they just stay quiet. It's funny, I don't never benefit from it. I don't never get, it's funny, donations for and my source told me, he actually thanked me and said I contributed a lot to the movement, and he appreciated and said I deserve to be free. And I thank him for not acknowledging that, by the way, because he didn't have to do that despite. And I know how selfish people are. So what I do, because I went through the school of hard knocks, and I mentioned in my disclaimer, you guys have to do your homework. I only share those types of things with people that I know. If you decide to, set up a consult with me, I'm not pressing anybody to. It's up to you. But if you want to know some of those types of things or those questions, donate to the channel. If you guys show more love, show support, hit the Cash App. It's in the description box of the videos. I can go over more powerful information. That's the reason why I hold back from a lot of things. there should be even exchange, no robbery. I've given a lot throughout the years, free information, very powerful information. It was suggested even many years ago. I had friends, people tell me, hey, Dorsey, you give out too much information. And I know I should have started a Patreon a long time ago, and those things can take time. And because of this type of job, it's just done me throughout the years when I kind of went over earlier, and it's been unpredictable because they can't find dependable people and they lean on the dependable people like myself too much. And it's hard for me to say no sometimes. I'm kind of like that Jim Carrey movie where he couldn't tell a lie. It's difficult because and that's kind of a spirit of abandonment. More parents, my parents were in my life. I had to learn game years later. I was at a funeral with my cousins from down south in Atlanta. And I had a quote my cousin said when we were contemplating whether it was time for us to go eat yet. And my cousin said, well, he was taught to ask questions later. See, I was never taught that. I should have been taught that, but I had to learn through the school of hard knocks. And I didn't have any older brothers. I was the oldest sibling. So a lot of people ate off me. I had it the hard way. So, I didn't have it, it's easy, but I'm not doing this out of spite or anything. But I just feel, if I had more people that appreciated my content, show the love that I make, I will go into more details. But I'm not pressing. I will keep it at a level. Keep it 150 with you guys, 150. But it's amazing how I've seen through all the censorship that I've been through, the shadow banning. You guys know they almost shut this channel down last year because they didn't like what I was talking about from that what happened in 2020. You guys know with the former president, by the way. I won't go into details, but a couple videos I did, they went back, and I was one strike away from having this whole channel shut down. And I have a backup channel, by the way. So in case you guys don't know, subscribe over there, share this video with someone, smash the like button if you haven't, share the video. And so this gets out, by the way. And then my channel, the work that I put in, I also did a video on negotiable instruments, a real good video. If you go in the description box, and it will help people that are doing processes with bill of exchanges. I went over a lot of laws in there, even the state law. If you're in Michigan, I went over a breakdown how the Michigan compiled law is codified with the Uniform Commercial Code 3-603 subsection B, that even if the merchant refuses to accept the tender of payment, there's still a discharge to the amount of tender. Because my source shared with me years ago, this is some powerful information, at how House Joint Resolution 192 of the remedy, which is declared as public policy, public law 73-10, codified in statute 4848, section 112 of the statutes at large. They put the remedy also in the Code of Federal Regulations. Forget which particular code of regulations. It was, I think, 103.11, section U. That was, look up Title 31, dealt with monetary instruments. Section U was 103.11. I can't remember if it was Title 31 of the Code of Federal Regulations. They stated that all negotiable instruments, it said checks, money orders, stuff like that, are forms of negotiable instruments. And he was explaining how they hid the remedy through even the language that they use. But if you look up Uniform Commercial Code 3-603, it talks about discharge, that yes, the merchant can refuse the payment, but however, refusal is still discharge. Look that full section up. And it's codified in Michigan compiled laws, MCL 440.1308. 440s are where all the uniform commercial codes are codified in the state of Michigan. And remember, the MCLs and the MCRs, the lawyers, police officers, judges have to go by Michigan court rules. Those are the MCRs, and the Michigan compiled laws. Those are the MCLs, by the way. So the UCC codes are codified in the MCLs in reference to 440. This is not legal advice. I'm not a lawyer, so I'm just using in reference to. I'm pointing in reference, because remember, another trick they did is they made the codes copywritten. By the way, because sometimes when you're right in court with this trickery, deception they use, they can make you lose even if you're right, because they control both sides. It's a racket. By the way, many of you all that know this, I was speaking to someone recently who was very aware. When you hire an attorney, you're declaring yourself incompetent, by the way, and they ask for your social security number. That should tell you right there, because your social security number is used, significantly if you know what to do in terms of getting to the point to correct your status. You will know, what's going on with that and how they some of these institutions. And I learned jobs tap in to using your treasury account, going to the treasury. I found out recently. Big shout out to King Stevion's channel. By the way, some information I came across, and he explained how these employers were going to the treasury. And my source also didn't know years ago they combined people's driver's licenses with their social security records, which were separate at one time years ago. Those are considered two separate identities, and they combined the records, consolidated them. By the way, because these people are authoritarians, and they revenue collectors, tax collectors. Like one of the sisters mentioned, a lot of the courts, they're actually tax courts. Yusuf talked about this, how all crimes are commercial. I don't remember that law offhand, but Yusuf used to quote quite a bit how all crimes are commercial, whether it's civil or criminal. All crimes are commercial, whether it's civil or criminal. Even if it's a murder charge, there's still money being made. They charge the bond. What are they charging? The bond. What does the bond have attached? A QSIP. What is a QSIP? Acronym for QSIP, Committee on Uniform Securities Identifying the Principal. Security. What is a security? Well, security instrument. What is your birth certificate? What is that corporate security certificate? What is the social security card? It's telling you security card. That's a form of registered security. It's a securities instrument. So when they're charging you going to court, they're charging what? They're charging the bond. You always hear about bonds. Interesting, by the way. And then you get a number when you volunteer to go to prison. That's a whole nother thing. David Straight talked about that. He told a story. I won't get into that. That's too powerful. There's some other things that I know, but they're using legalese in the court system. Deception, trickery. So a lot of these things they're committing fraud. They're getting away with theft by deception, dereliction of duty. By the way, many of these are tribunal courts, tax courts, and a lot of them have not properly reported the tax. I found out there was a guy years ago I met at Panera Bread. This is a true story, and he actually admitted he was more proficient than I was. He had already had experience going into court. He told me a story how he had gotten his cousin off of some gun charges. His name was Dermaine, by the way. The reason I mentioned the name in this instance is to show proof. I haven't been in touch with him for a number of years. Maybe one of my previous phones, I lost contact, but I found out he was a student at the time of one of the heavy hitters I had heard about earlier on. When I learned about this information, there were 3 heavy hitters in the city that were known for being able to go to court, and they were known for being very proficient, where they were more knowledgeable than lawyers and judges, and they had actually battled lawyers and judges in court. And I found out his mentor's name was Amarion, or they call Amari for short. Amari's, I think. And he told me he was close to winning a case that could have done something to shut down the Michigan State Police, by the way. But the judge had put in some type of request or failure to state a claim where relief can be granted. He told me the mistake that he had made, because it was a lot of wasn't as proficient in that regard, but he was very knowledgeable on how the legal system worked and how they use Latin in the terminology. And he said the judge did something slick and told him put something submitted, but he said he was tearing the state police officer up and the judge in court. And these guys were very proficient with the law. He was one of them. It was Morella Riley, Washita Soldier. It was a nickname. I heard he passed away. Rest in peace to his government name was Roosevelt Harrison. Rest in peace to Roosevelt Harrison. He was also a traveling man. Rest in peace to, very knowledgeable. He helped wake me up at many of these early meetings that I attended when he would give information, how he battled judges in court. That's how I learned how he mentioned he was winning so well, beating one judge. He threw out a Masonic, Eastern Star hand gesture, by the way, because he was, weird, whipping her up, with the knowledge that he had. Because you guys don't know, they try to have the way the court system is set up. They dumbed us down through the school system on purpose. So, and they took Latin out the school systems was another strategy to dumb us down, because the courts use a lot of Latin, which is like a parent language to the English language that we speak. By the way, when you understand Latin and the legalese, look up the definition. Legalese means that it's been used to replace plain talk or replace plain English. So this gives them an advantage over you. And that's why when you go into court, you don't understand a lot of these terms that they're using, because it's forms of theft by deception and trickery. So it's not a level playing field. It's like when a visiting sports team, visits a home team, the home team is going to have the advantage. So look at the courts, the judges, lawyers, that's their home team. They have home court advantage. And, it's difficult when you're a visiting team and you're on the road to win on home court. This literally is set up like a racket when you delve into this. And there's documents that used to be online years ago you could read for free that Scribs would have. One of them I recommended, if you can still find it, was called Lawyers and Judges Secret Oath. See if you can still find that document. It might be on Scribs. It's called Lawyers and Judges Secret Oath. Look that up, and that will help provide some insight. By the way, says nothing can stop what's coming. Says thank you. Moneyboy Film says that's good, Dorsey. Appreciate you. Moneyboy in the building, fam. Lady Tech says you have to be in the school. Sorry, got to keep the private. Nothing can stop. Says Moneyboy was good. The Lady Tech, she was speaking to Nothing Can Stop. She was referencing about the school that she has. Okay, Lady B says peace in the building. Moneyboy says hey everyone. Crypto Cakes Cartel says salute God. Appreciate you. Says, yep, 28 USC section 3002. Yep, that's states United States is a federal corporation, as I went over earlier. Moneyboy Films in the building says, what about the private side? The international, that sounds like international driver's permit ID. Yes, I did hear from what the source said. I've known about that for years, by the way. And yes, you when you're out of certain contracts, by the way, then those things will work for you better, because when they try to pull you over, they won't have jurisdiction. There's certain rules at certain levels that police have to know they have to follow. But if they still see certain contracts are lingering, you have to have already gotten rid of the regular driver's license, because some people were they call that co-mingling. So if you have a international IDP or international driver's license, that's good. But however, you have to make sure you have properly rescinded your other driver's license, which I actually still have. I'm not completely out yet. Now, there are ways, what I learned years ago, to lean the item up to protect you. There was a procedure dealing with the non-UCC that was used to protect if you were still involved in certain contracts, by the way, to protect you. But there's a new information now that I've come across where it actually appears to be easier in taking yourself out, but you have to you have to make sure you follow the directions, because there's several things you have to do to correct how one is operating, and there's different procedures. So yeah, the important thing if you're using a private side IPP is tell people you can't have the regular driver's license anymore, because that's a form of co-mingling. And Joni used to talk about if the police can still find, or they look your name up and they do a search, another type of search, and they find it matches the address and it matches the name. Say you did rescind it or it was suspended, but it was still in their system and it didn't properly get removed from their system, then they can pull you back into jurisdiction, by the way. So that's important. If you're on a mission, don't think just because you have the IDP, you're out the blue. You got to get rid of, you got to get them for it to drop off the system. Because what will eventually happen is when you cancel your voter registration, which I did back in 2004, what eventually happens, similar to the driver's license, when you properly rescind it for a number of years, after so many years, it'll drop out the system. They won't have a record of it anymore. By the way, reason we know this, there was a guy in our group, he's closer to a friend that I know. I know him too. He knows me. He spent some time in prison, and when he got out of prison, he discovered he didn't have a driver's license and had gotten removed from the system, and he had a CDL, by the way, because one of the jobs he used to do, I guess a chauffeur's license. He used to drive school buses, by the way, and unfortunately he had got caught up in a situation, very bad situation. Uh, Not nothing. The person had basically lied on him. You know how it's a lot of people that are in prison or jail for things they didn't do. I won't go into his personal business. So he got caught up, and he eventually got out, had to go through probation, and he had discovered his driver's license was no longer in the system. So I think his friend at the time recommended he didn't renew it. I don't know if he did or not, but they will eventually fall out. But there is a proper way to remove it, and that's one of the things I like, that this sister, who's part of this group that I discover, is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, I'm really impressed by her work. I'm a fan and I'm still going over the information. It's very concise, and I notice a lot of the people who are on this class. I got a hold of the other version where people were asking questions, the Q&A, and they were very impressed as well, and I could hear it in their voices. The people who did show their faces, their body language, their voice inflection. This is the sister. I put her on the level. She's literally like a modern day Harriet Tubman. But like I said, I won't say the name of who she is or even the group. Respect her anonymity and respect what she's doing. And I wish her well, and I wish her protection. Just people like that's got to be protected, because people who are in positions like us, or content creators, influencers. By the way, there's gatekeepers out there high up in some instances within the government that don't want people gaining access to the proper information. Because I was watching one of Taekwon X's videos recently, and he was saying something about where they were trying to falsely accuse people of being sovereign citizens. And you guys know I've never claimed that I was a sovereign citizen or used that term. And I've actually heard, I met a guy at the Southfield Library that told me years ago, who was a follower of my channel, that contacted me because he lived in the same city. He was in the same area and he wanted to connect with me. So I invited him to one of the classes that I used to attend. And he told me, he said, when people call you that, that's incorrect. He said, that's an oxymoron, contradiction, because it's similar like when people accuse you of being a conspiracy theorist. Because a citizen, you separate the word, it's a subject, it's a slave. And the word sovereign means to be self-governed, to be free. Those are two separate words. So you can't be a sovereign citizen, and it's not no such thing. The State Department only classifies like four or five different forms of citizenship. So sovereign citizen is not an official, it's a pseudo name or an umbrella term that's used to try to make people look bad or discredit them. But I think the official forms of citizenship, or forms of it, you have alien, non-resident alien, U.S. citizen, national or foreign national, something like that. Those are official forms that are recognized, but such thing, sovereign citizen, there's no such thing. And that's an umbrella term, but once again, it's being used to try to target people by gatekeepers, because they making money off of people, keeping them enslaved and trying to keep people trapped and not allowing people to be free. And this is a form of violating spiritual laws of the universe, breaking laws and rules and things. So just be aware of that. That's propaganda. Just like when people are accused of being a conspiracy theory, when you hear somebody say that, just know that they're a potential gatekeeper or government agent, and steer clear from them, or keep an eye on them. Or they're also a hater. Some people are haters. They don't like the fact that you know something they don't know, or you because they're benefiting somehow. Like there's people that don't want you canceling your voter registration because they're also making money keeping people brainwashed, and they're not doing nothing for the people, like, especially the Democratic Party. And this is why you guys heard me go over for years. I said the onus is more on the Democratic Party to pass reparations and do something for Black people, because they are the biggest grifters there are. And cancel culture and everything comes mostly from Democrats. I think anybody in here could agree with me. Democrats are the main protagonist. That's not coming from the Republican culture. If you look at who cancel culture is, or these groups like Antifa, the anti-fascists, or these communist groups, where they want to have their free speech, but they don't want to allow your free speech. You know, where they say, remember, hate speech is speech they don't agree with. You see, they're authoritarians. They're actually the authoritarians. They try to pretend that they're the poor, they're for the poor, they're for the weak, but they're authoritarians. Theft by deception. So you guys got to watch that. So if you hear somebody call you a sovereign citizen, that's someone being disrespectful. They're being ignorant to the information, because I talk about the legitimate side. And it actually deals with being a private citizen, and more so being private. Citizen is really should be a slave, a subject. So it really should be is learning to operate in the private. That's what it really pertains to. And also a lot of this deals with the laws, by the way. And you don't have to have a lawyer in certain states. There's actually a law, statute that says you're not required to have a license to practice the law. I had a individual, I don't know where it's at offhand, but he printed it out and shared it with me years ago in the state of, I think in the state of Michigan. I can't speak for other states, by the way. And people can even represent other people, I think under the My Brother's Keeper Act or something. I don't know where that's found at, but I've heard of it before, or the Good Samaritan law or something like that. But if you know what you're doing, you're very proficient. You can be more powerful than lawyers and judges. You just have to understand a lot of people don't want to go through the rigmarole because it takes a lot of studying and a large vocabulary to be that proficient. But there are people that are really that good, because you have people out here who have photographic memories, autobiographical memories, and things that have phenomenal skill sets that have been able to go up against these gatekeepers, by the way. But I'm making you guys aware that when they use those terms, that they're doing that to try to discredit people or make them look like conspiracy theorists, just like that word was invented back in the 60s, by the way, because people are waking up, freeing themselves, and they're making money behind the scenes by keeping people enslaved, keeping you ignorant. That's why the Rockefeller family, years ago in the early 1900s, they had the educational system dumbed down. You can look this up. This was in a documentary I was watching. I can't remember if it was Money Masters or Monopoly Men, but you want to check that out. Also watch Ring of Power, Empire of the City. I've gone over these documentaries numerous times in previous videos. You can watch free on YouTube. There's Money Masters and Monopoly Men. I'll put it, I'll type it in the chat section. So after the video is over with, you guys can go see. These are documentaries. I'm gonna type, and then you have Money Masters. That was put together by Bill Steele. You can watch free on YouTube. And I'm gonna type in Ring of Power. The full name was Empire of the City. And you can watch this free on YouTube as well. Just type it in the search engine. You have to scroll for it. Look it up, by the way. So Nothing Can Stop says, brother, what do you mean by lingering? You may have misheard me where I was mentioning where I meant co-mingling. Where co-mingling in contracts, like when I was answering Moneyboy's question about the IPP, International Driver's Permit. By the way, you just have to make sure you've gotten rid of your driver's license before, or else because what happens, say if you get pulled over, or God forbid, these situations do occur. We know chronically there's other channels that have talked about this too. Big shout out to Hellraiser, the work that he's doing. Trey Capital, Malachi over there. I think those some of the different names he goes by. By the way, it's been around for quite a while. That's very knowledgeable about trust and business credit, corporate credit. I recommend Malachi, Trey Capital. If I had the funds already, I would have, definitely reached out a while ago. But to understand what I meant by the term is co-mingling. To answer the question in the chat section, I think you meant Nothing Can Stop was coming from that account. Says, brother, what do you mean by lingering? I said co-mingling. So I'm gonna type it in the chat. Co-mingling. You have to be careful. Co-mingling is when you're mixing public and private. So one of the reason why I did this video as well about the passport stars means something. Like, say, for example, when you have 4 stars, it's a form of a caste system to let you know you're not the U.S. citizen. It's a higher rank than that status, but it means you still have some contracts that are still lingering. within their jurisdiction. And my source told me, my source is very knowledgeable, by the way, and I won't go into some other details. They have credibility in other areas I can't go into details about. And my source mentioned the State Department. That's what our government, they work basically in conjoining with Homeland Security, et cetera, that can see the transactions that you're doing. When this information was shared some years ago, as we were transitioning to attempting to exit the matrix, we discovered there is I won't call it a shortcut, but there's a back door. You've heard the saying, there's different ways to skin a cat, or different pathways to take. Like if you take one freeway or highway, there's different routes that you can take to get to the same destination. So one of the things discovered many years ago, there was these audios my older cousin gave me. By the way, big shout out to my older cousin in the DC area. My older cousin gave me these audios. The guy's name was Don Mancuso. Recently, a friend of mine in the DC area had asked me about these audios I sent. He had requested, I had sent it to him some years ago, but I think he lost them or something happened. And I told him I went through a situation some years ago where the IRS and the student loan were trying to come after me. So some serious situations I was in. And these audios, I didn't listen to my cousin at first, because back then I wasn't studying like I used to. I was still young at the time. I wasn't taking this information as serious as I should have. I also didn't know as much as I know now. By the way, I was around 20 at the time. I was like around 27, 20, 26, 27 years old, around that time frame. When he first gave me the audios, I didn't listen to them for like months or till over a year. And what caused me to listen to them, I went in a situation with my previous job years ago. They started garnishing my wages without a court order. It wasn't for, I know what you're thinking, it wasn't for child support. I don't have any children. It's actually, at the time, it was for a student loan, by the way. And it's funny, the employee handbook said they would notify you if there was a notice for a wage garnishment. And this actually caused me, this is how I learned a little bit more about the laws and some administrative processes. And I actually know the law in the state of Michigan that any garnishment without a court order is void, it's illegal. And that's pursuant to Michigan compiled law 600.6231. I can look it up now, by the way, because I want to have my facts correct, and I don't want to give you guys misinformation. But it's been a while since I've used this law. Okay, it says Michigan legislature confirmed. What happened was they went in and they got a letter. What happened is one of the student loan companies had made a agreement with the operations managers for a previous security company I used to work for years ago. They got bought out by another company. It used to be called Recon Management Security. They got bought out by Teach Out. And they actually used to be right next to Trot and Trot Law Firm in Bingham's Farms, Michigan. So I went up there a couple times. I battled the lawyer, and the lawyer was like, don't give me none of this UCC stuff. Because even though I never really had experience going up against lawyers and judges in court, they had a lawyer at the time that worked for the company. I said, I didn't have the law at that time. I said, I read that wage garnishments in Michigan were illegal, by the way. And I said, why are you guys taking this out anyway? And the lawyer kept telling me, he's like, I don't know. But it was funny, when he started off, they must have got wind that I was, part of this, what that word I said earlier, or whatever, and they didn't know what it was, because it's a lot of misinformation going around out there. I call it redemption education. So he starts coming off saying, don't give me none of this UCC stuff. And I was like, where is this coming from? I didn't mention any UCC at all. By the way, I'm just simply there to find out why they had given permission that was in violation of the Michigan law. And they stated, even in the employee handbook that I had at the time, they would not garnish your wages, or did not have a right to, that you had to be notified first. And I come to find out he had made a deal with the student loan person, but somehow I had discovered I had also recontracted. So this may help answer the question earlier when someone had asked me about, I meant co-mingling back then. So I learned how you have to keep when you fill out certain applications and things will ask, let's say if it's for healthcare, stuff like that, never give your employer information. Always keep your employer stuff separate from you as a private person, a private individual. They don't need to know that information, because what these companies are doing behind the scenes, they're monetizing or turning these instruments into registered securities. And this is violating your due process if they did not give you disclosure. So at this time, my due process of law was violated because they didn't provide disclosure, which they said they would in the employee handbook. So what I discovered, pursuant to, and I'm not a lawyer, so I did give a disclaimer earlier, but in reference to Michigan Compiled Law 600.6231, says garnishment without an order is prohibited and void. Notice of order: the garnishment of any money due or to become due for the personal work and labor of the defendant upon a judgment made payable in installments either by the court order or agreement of parties is prohibited. It says accepting upon, this is the key, accepting upon the written order of the judge means a judge has to sign off on it. Any writ of garnishment issued without the order is void. It says the order may be made following due notice to the defendant if the installments are due. And here's the reason why the student loan had violated my right and my employer as well. And what happened is they sent the letter stating it was administrative wage garnishment. Keyword administrative. This is not a legal process. They didn't go through a proper a judge or someone that had standing to enforce this. So they called it a minute, and they would try to scare you and try to say, well, the state law has to go by the federal law. But the state law, when I found out, I looked up the federal law, actually states it must be in compliant with the state law. So they try to confuse you and say, oh, because we have power with the federal government. This is how they trick people into giving up acquiescence in these contracts, because they have you think, oh, the big corporation has all this power. Well, you guys have to understand how these corporations were formed. Did you guys know in the early 1900s, many of these corporations were common law express trust before they formed into corporations that they used past laws down the road to usurp people's rights away, like the Erie Railroad versus Tompkins case in 1938 that changed the majority of courts in this country from common law courts to de facto statutory courts. Look up the Erie Railroad versus Tompkins case of 1938 that changed the courts in this country to color of law. Prior to then, you guys might not know the courts operated under common law. That's where even the statutes and things predominantly come out of common law, but they created a new type of law, a new type of jurisdiction, statutory, under Admiralty Maritime. Admiralty is military, maritime is law of the seas. So this is combined with like water law the corporations are using, kind of like a form of de facto law. See, we as people are supposed to be dealing in common law. You know, we live in the land of the living, the land. There's a difference between the land and the corporation. Even how it's spelled, how the rules of grammar, there's distinct rules. Even in legalese, look up the definition of legalese, which has been used to replace plain talk. Plain English is a separate set of rules the court system abides by. Look up legalese. This is why there's rules of grammar, even with the Sestacute Trust, capitis diminutiu maxima. There's also capitis diminutiu minima. You retain all rights and you sign it all lowercase. So ways, these are rules of grammar. Just like legalese, there's rules, just like there's court rules. You have to understand when these things were invented, when they invented this language, there was rules that they call rules of grammar. Remember how you learn how to speak when you went to grade school, if you learn why certain words are plural, or certain terms are adjective, or what words take action, things of that sort. And they're using a form of David Windmiller exposed some years ago, syntax grammar as well, this advanced. But the key is what's happening. I'm going to read from this other document. Once again, the word legal originates in the idea of being connected to a legal system by contract. So the connection is created by consent. What is to be legal becomes law by that consent. And one of the essential ingredients of that consent is mutual consideration, whether by application or indulgence. A person may waive certain rights naturally inherent unknowingly, and the individual may become obligated to abide by that contract, because that's when you're giving consent. So you have to watch that. That's why it's important to read all contracts, all disclaimers out there when you're signing up for things, or you're getting these promotional offers on your phone, and you'll see these things pop up, or you sign up for a cell phone service or cable service, and they have this fine print, or you're downloading a software. It's important to read those contracts they have, understanding. Another thing, when they created this process, the registration of the birth certificate years ago was transferring the patriae potestas, the power of the father, from the natural family to the corporate state. With that certification, you can obtain, they created benefit privileges, but it was for the benefit, protection, and care from the state for the child, but ultimately to usurp power from we the people, the living man and women, to give power back to the state. So when you properly exit the matrix, you regain control of power. And that's why the police, when the sister mentioned her daughter was pulled over, why the police didn't have jurisdiction, because she took back control completely. When she took herself out, come out among her, So this system was fraudulently created to usurp authority. There's truth to this. And they did this, using the Social Security card. So if you've heard of parents patriae, obey the father, this is the process of becoming a child of the state, being manuminated from your natural father. It is a process whereby the state, who moves in place of the father and mothers of a family, becomes the benefactors of the people. See, we're supposed to be the beneficiary. They're acting as they create a constructive trust. They come in or act as co-trustees, and then they administer your estate. That's why when you hire a lawyer, hire an attorney, and they ask for your social security number, that's a red flag, major red flag. But I understand why most people do it or are forced to do it, because the way this legal system is very complex. Most people don't have the time to learn all the information to be able to properly know how to defend themselves. So it's just easier for them, especially when people have money or have the finances or resources. But however, people that are very knowledgeable or proficient have been able to level the playing field. Just put it that way. So I'm gonna scroll down some more, read some more of the comments. Nothing can stop what's coming says, thank you, Lady Tech. Moneyboy Films, knowledge is Brian B. Lady Tech says thumbs up. Peter Lay in here asks a question, says, do you need a passport if I have a 5-star international permit ID? Okay. Now, actually, I'm not sure what if you're mentioning interesting which type of ID. If you're still in here, Peter Lay, if you can explain, are you talking about, is that international driver's permit the same as the international driver's license? By the way, I need a little bit more information to be able to answer your question. By the way, and I wasn't aware. And what did you go through? What agency did you go through to have that issued? In order for me to answer that question, I would need those details. Like, what website did you go through? A private website and have that created, like the World Passport, or did you go through a government entity and have the 5-star? But you may already be out. Another thing I mentioned in the past is sometimes we have people who are already out of the system who come on here, and sometimes people brag because they can hide behind ghost accounts. I'm not saying this is the case, but to answer certain questions, would need more information. Because I've noticed in the past, we've had people who are really advanced, and I will acknowledge, I can tell some people are highly advanced, even more advanced than myself. And I've mentioned that in the past. And it would be helpful if they would reach out, because when I attended that private event some years ago, my source also brought up, he said that wasn't right, that a lot of people, they were supposed to come back and help, and they didn't. And the head administrator was mad about that at one time. And he even stated, when I attended my first seminar, he said that's why he originally didn't want to teach the process with the black card, because there had been people who had left and didn't come back to help the people, by the way. And they cause harm when they do that, because there was people who paid just like everyone else. And when these individuals, like, that's a form of bragging and they're supposed to be public, private in the way they do their transactions and things. And he said these people, their ultimate goal was they wanted to have them in the DTC to do humanitarian projects and other things. And he said they were just happy that they had gotten the black card. And I remember he said this. It may be on the older audios I have as well, but I remember him going over this at the seminar because somebody there brought it up. I had no idea about it. And someone mentioned it, and he said he didn't want to discuss that once again because there were people who got access to the Federal Reserve black card, which I heard you can spend up to $1 million per day, and it's separate from the DTC's transaction. And yeah, they didn't. Many of those people said they didn't reach back and help. And he said some of those people had died where they had overindulged themselves, or they had went too public, or they were drug users, and had he felt bad that there was a story was told that one guy ended up in the hospital or something, because sometimes when people come into that type of wealth, just like winning the lottery, there's been a lot of horror stories of people who won the lottery. They didn't know properly what to do with it. They couldn't handle it. So if you do have a level of knowledge, it will behoove you. There's other people who are advanced. They need advanced people to come out, help free the people if you are advanced, genuinely. So I don't know sometimes who people are when they hide behind some of these ghost accounts or things. These are things as a content creator I have to try to weed through and figure out sometimes when people have certain questions if they're legitimate. I see he has another statement. It says, laugh out loud, Money Boy IPP is legit to quit. So I don't know, Peter, if that was a legitimate question or whatnot. Darren Gill says, do you think the RV is close? Yes, I do. I do think, yep, we are close. I've gone over that information. Check out my previous video and check out videos I did about the cryptocurrencies, the Ripple. Darren, if you're new to my channel, don't forget to subscribe, hit the thumbs up. But if you have questions about the RV, check out the video I did before this video, and then that was a recap of the other two videos. But I went over it's connected. They've changed the banking system around. By the way, nothing can stop what's coming. Says, how many stars will you need on the passport to skip in the airport? Now, I just know about the story my source told me when they were getting ready to board. But there was the two gentlemen I mentioned earlier. I was on listening to a audio that Jonah Bay and Yusuf El had done from some years ago. I may have it somewhere. I just don't know where it's at offhand because I've acquired so much information throughout the years. It's unreal. A lot of stuff to keep up with. That's why I said you need large groups, large teams of people diligently willing to study. And unfortunately, a lot of our people don't stick together either, or not as serious, and it makes it difficult. But to answer your question, it sounds like you mean being able to skip the TSA line. And I think they mentioned that at one time there was a particular strategy they used. I won't go over that. I remember what they mentioned. This was both Jonah and Yusuf, and they both said they didn't go over how they both traveled a particular way through the airports. I won't even go into the details, but it sounds like they were able to skip that line. I think that's what you're referring to. But my source, I think he went through the regular checkout, but this happened when he was getting ready to board the plane. By the way, if you have your eyeglasses on, he only had the 4-star. So that means there is a caste system. When that sister, the reason I did this video, when she told that gentleman on this private webinar that the stars don't mean anything. No, they do, actually. And my source confirmed that he is not just I won't put his business out there, but he's part of something like I was. So there's things he tells me he can't go into details about, which I understand, because some people, you have to understand, are also under non-disclosure agreements, by the way. So they can't go into the details, but he's very, very credible, very well studied. Someone I know personally, and why would I come on here and just make something up if I wasn't for sure about it? So no, I wanted to correct this sister, whoever she was in that particular group, when she answered that guy's question. No, the stars definitely mean something. They're not just sitting on there to look pretty. They have a meaning to them. That's why I just decided to do this video. That's not to poo-poo or discredit because that group was powerful. They're phenomenal with the information, especially that the administrator puts out. She is absolutely unbelievable. I am amazed. I am a fan of. I bow down to that queen. By the way, I tell her she's phenomenal, but I won't say the name of that group or who she is to protect our identity, because it sounds like when she did mention something about that she had seen drones flying around her house, fake birds or whatever, that sounded like she was being watched because she's freeing the people and she was helping get people off court cases and things of that sort. And when people are doing things on that type of level, and I think she said she's messing with the bankers' money, because they, like I kind of said earlier, they want you to be a slave or dumb down. That's why they'll call you those derogatory terms, because they're making money off you behind the scenes. That's what's going on. Even some of their gatekeeper minions that may be unaware of it, that may not like what you're doing, that want you to be all up in these contracts because they're making money off you. And that's not fair if you're not getting a cut of that. That's all I'm saying. At least if they're going to do those things. And then when they're not telling you, they're not providing due process of law. So that's a violation. So the reason I'm not saying this sister's name, I'm not mentioning the name of the group, is to protect her. Also, the people in that group as well, her moderators or administrators, because people risk their lives. And I remember she said she wasn't afraid of nothing, but I admire what she's doing. And I thank her and the others that are part of that group out there that gave permission or for me to have access to this information. So this is my personal thank you to her, and without saying no names. So I bow down to the queen. I'm amazed, and it's absolutely phenomenal. So thank you, thank you, thank you so much. I can't say greatly appreciate it, because it kind of when you're going through, you've been part of this a long time, such as myself, and I've been searching for, just like you guys, I'm in a similar boat where I paid people hundreds of dollars to be free, and certain processes didn't work out. Things you guys know, many of you guys know the story I told when I went through the Pastor Tony King seminars, how that turned out, and things. So I've been where you guys are. I can relate to where I know a lot of people say, I've been through that as well. It's been difficult, even though I'm at a certain level in this. I'm not a beginner. I'm definitely not a beginner or the modest level. I'm at an advanced stage in this. It's just as I've gotten older now, I face challenges with my job, working the trials of Job, just over broke, dealing with gatekeepers and people, a lot of energies trying to stop me, prevent me from getting to that next level. But as I know deep down in my heart, as I told some people, I'm not concerned. That there was my health coach I was meeting with, and I got to text her back. She's so wonderful person. She reached back to me, text me recently. I'm not really good sometimes when it comes to social media. Even with my own parent, my mother, she knows, she understands. I don't respond back to text messages and stuff right away. Always. Sometimes I do respond immediately, but it's so many different social media messages and stuff like that. But my health coach got back and she told me to reach out to her. She was concerned because by me being on this night shift, she says that it's messing with my biochemistry, and I've known for a number of years. So I think this should be maybe probably the last year, maybe hopefully. I don't want to put it out there, but a time frame. Hopefully, in the coming months, I will be in a position to leave entirely. I'm just contemplating. I wanted to put in a 2-week notice, so I'm even despite all the stuff they did to me, I was still going to try to put in a two-week notice. I even asked a friend of mine. He still hasn't done it yet. It's cool. I said, if you can get me a template for a 2-week notice, 2-week letter notice, if you can write me a template. I probably could find one maybe online nowadays with so much stuff, templates and things people have out there. But I said, give me one ahead of time. See, that's how you will things into existence. You think it positivity, like a lot of life coaches will have you think, put affirmations into existence. And I've done that before when I took study hypnosis and things, binary beats, things of that, alpha waves, theta waves. You put things into existence, so you want to think positive. So I told a friend of mine, just go ahead, if you can, get me a 2-week notice letter. But I said I do have an exit strategy. because I'm up there in age where I need to retire. Like NBA players, they do what's called load management, where I do understand where they're coming from, like players like Kawhi Leonard, LeBron James, Anthony Davidson, others. You need to take a load because they have an 82 game season, and the job just expects me to just cover these shifts for people when they call off and don't come in. You guys don't know that messes with me when I need to study or I need to meet with people to have consultations or classes, and it's organized. And they don't do nobody else like that but me. It's just dirty, man. And but God willing, I said, like, I'm not going to be negative about it. I'm going to be positive, but I do believe, and I've dreamed about it. I'm not going to be there, but my days are numbered. Hopefully, I wanted to be able to put in my 2 week notice, but we'll see. Hopefully, I wanted to basically leave on good terms and just call it a wrap. Hopefully, never have to be at that place again. And I've come across some new information. I would say that it's on me that I can't procrastinate. Just like you guys, you have to be proactive with the information. You have to have the willpower, the tenacity. It takes a lot, and you have to be mentally prepared. Sometimes you have to meditate. I have to coach myself because as you get older, you know how the body slows down. You have to work out and you have to work the mind and stay in shape, or else you'll lose it. You can lose whatever you have. But I want to encourage you guys: don't give up at this. Stay consistent. There's light at the end of the tunnel, by the way, and I see it coming. Like with the question I have about the RV, I think it's coming soon. It's right around the corner, as well as I think certain cryptocurrencies. And that's all I'll kind of say. Nothing can stop says, okay, I think I answered that question. How many stars will you need on the passport to skip in the airport? I don't know if you necessarily, it's a way, I think there is a way to skip the lines where they check you in. That's what I was referencing the two people earlier, but that I don't know. But the other line, there was a different line that the person that told the story, and we did a webinar on it privately, which I mentioned earlier with Lady B right before the beginning of this year, towards the end of last year, privately with my private contact that I had to show evidence and proof that they are real, they're out there, and there's someone that's more knowledgeable than myself, I would say. And they confirmed that the State Department can actually see your transactions, by the way. Yep. So that instance happened when they were getting ready to board. Crypto Cakes Cartel says facts. I'm Gretchen. Okay. I remember someone was under the name Gretchen something. So I guess they changed the names again. Crypto Cakes Cartel says at Dorsey. Okay, says, oh well, thank you for joining Crypto Cakes. I appreciate you for chiming in. Nothing can stop what's coming, says at Darren Gill. The RV won't happen till the end of 2024. Okay. Nothing can stop what's coming, says TIL. Says at nothing can stop what's coming, says thank you. Okay. Yeah, it very well could be. We know it has been pushed back and delayed. And they have, in case you guys don't know, they really have changed things around when it was supposed to go many years ago. I am aware of that. TNT talked about that information years ago, how there was so many instances the RV was close or about to happen, and it was called off at the last minute, by the way. And I have a source, a banker on the East Coast. She told me some years ago in a private conversation we had, and she's been in some of my older videos that some might still be up, live videos that I've done. And she told me that the U.S. Treasury at the time was the cause of the holdup. I don't know if they still are, but I also got wind that allegedly the banks were ready, were on standby, but they needed the approval, the access codes to receive the green light, but they were like in a yellow light, a limbo, that there was a status, or they have a rank and file system within the bank. Like I found out, one of my sources told me a story where his friend had a cousin look, someone she worked with that had higher credentials look up, and they saw what the actual rate is at through the back screens that other people at a lower level are not able to access, I guess, whatever. And I heard they're like at a status where it's at a yellow light that I heard that many of them want to go, but they have a lot of the bankers are under NDAs now too. So a lot of them are not talking as much as they used to some of the contacts out there. The word that I received from listening to these private conference calls, by the way, to basically share the information, disseminate it to the rest of you guys. Certain calls I've kept up with for a number of years. Curtis Keynes, Peter Lee says 100 star. Thank you. Curtis Kane says all accepted by State Department, and you can get back your explanatory statement with the affidavit. Yeah, I'm aware of that process. That's a different procedure, by the way, because I noticed the sister that I was referring to that's very proficient, very knowledgeable, has perfected a newer type of process, and this group is phenomenal. She talks about the days of the affidavit are gone. She likes to use the government's, their own forms and their own paperwork. She says without having to do, but I'm aware that I know Akeem L uses those explanatory statements. He's really good. That's a good process, but you have to understand how the different processes, people out there that are advanced, that have their own unique methods. That's why I say it's important for people to learn as much as they can and understand how their processes apply to certain situations. It's good to have kind of a legal background or learn somewhat for what notices, what will show proof or evidence. But my source did tell me the State Department can see the transactions you're doing, and that can determine based on how you fill out the application as well what type of how many stars you get, what type of passport you receive. But he was saying that because he still had contracts that are still lingering, still doing business out there as a U.S. person, those little adhesion contracts, subcontracts do matter. Don't let no one believe you that they don't. There's a caste system because there's a methodology to pulling oneself out. There's also another strategy to basically to change the jurisdiction to get you on the do not detain list. Because when I was going to tell you guys the story earlier, I got sidetracked when me and my source were visiting when I wanted to go back to the Department of Elections to prove there is a caste system with the passport process. The lady at the Department of Elections, she told me my name was blinking in red at the time. And she was smiling on her face. I didn't know what she was smiling for. I was like, okay, I've checked in the past because the sister told us years ago that woke me up to this information. She said, you guys need to go back and double check sometimes. So she said, they'll re-register you. And I was like, what? So that may have come when people get their license again, or they ask them, because they can sign you up to the DMV, but the DMV can't cancel it. You have to specifically go to the Department of Elections to have it canceled. But what's interesting is Department of Motor Vehicles, basically our Secretary of State office, where people go to for their driver's license tags and stuff. They can register you if you want to, but I don't think at that location they can't cancel it. So, but you don't never want to be an organ donor, and don't never get rid of your voter registration if you can. This will help you get on a form of a soft do not detain list or a pecking order to get to the full one, the full shebang. It's a level of status. That's why it's called status correction. But there's a pecking order, and this caste system is based out of England, by the way. There's some historical reference behind this, but those stars aren't just looking pretty. So to prove this, when I told my source who was with me at the time, he got excited. He started smiling when I told him. I said, the lady said my name was blinking in red, and I asked her because she turned the screen and showed me. Now, she said she couldn't do that. She couldn't turn the screen and show me, but she kept emphasizing that it was out, because they were trying to ask me. A lot of times they say, do you want to register? And I said, no, I just want to make sure that it's canceled, terminated. She said it was blinking in red, so she was excited. So I told my source, and he told me at the time there was this firm out west in Nevada that used to set up trusts for very elite people. By the way, they since closed down. It's believed to be some years ago. They resurfaced under a different name, but it appears as though they disappeared again. And I think I figured out where one of the guys decided to leave the country, who may have been the head over that firm. because the way that some of the things, the laws were going on here, I won't go into some of the other details. He said something about the IRS, and it appears as though he maybe went to South America or somewhere. So their office ended up disbanding, but they could still be out there under a different name potentially, because it's believed to be some years later they resurfaced under a different name when they disappeared. But they set up they set up trust and things for elite people. They provided service to very, very high net worth people, people that are not in the public. Then I was also informed they used to do paperwork that would put you on the do not detain list. And some of the history, the knowledge that I have, you guys can look this up. There's a book. You guys know how I did a video on those redemption manuals. There's some of the earlier books. One of the first books in that series was the only one I didn't get. One of the few or couple I didn't get. I had the majority of those redemption manuals, but one of them I didn't get. The guy that did those books actually went over. They went over instructions in the back of it earlier on. There was a procedure for getting on the do not detain list, and one of the offices was that UCIS. I think they had a show, TV show with the acronym of that name. I think they're associated with the FBI or whatever. Because what I understand, I've known for some years, is that lean database that the police are using when they pull people over. That's an acronym for Law Enforcement Information Network that runs all the way through Homeland Security and the State Department. They have information on you, and the FBI's database. It's interconnected. But of course, police officers, there's rules at different jurisdictional levels, and that database may have been referred to as scope. I have a friend that used to work for Ford Motor Company in information technology, and when I mentioned the name Scope database to him, he said that was the name of the database they used, was called Scope. So I don't know if that's a umbrella term for a type of private, a more private database they use to access certain information or individuals, but I do know the law enforcement they use was called lean, and certain police officers have gotten in trouble for looking up even information on former spouses, stuff like that. When I did research on it independently, they're supposed to have a reason, because me and a friend of mine some years ago, we went down to the Department of Homeland Security near our border, right at the Canadian border, and we spoke to some of the agents, and we gave them our driver's license at the time. We wanted them to look us up to see if anything was showing. And they told us at the time, they said they had to have a legitimate reason to look us up. But what they did do was interesting. We were on the side that we were forced to go drive to Canada, but they told us to go where we were able to turn around and go back to the Detroit side. Because, this is a border city. If you know anything about Detroit, we have the Windsor Tunnel, and we also have the bridge, by the way, which I've been on both years ago. I've been over there, by the way. So that's a real story. We were trying to have ourselves looked up, and the agent at the time told us, and I think what gave us a little bit of props, I told him I worked in security, because they asked me, what do we do for a living? And I told him I was a security guard. That seemed, even though that's a lower level of law enforcement, I had a guy I used to work with years ago who was studying to be a paramedic. He used to be a former U.S. Marine. And he had told me privately what the lean database was. He had went over. I asked him about it privately. And I asked him what shows up, and he told me allegedly that the name of the company shows up in the system if we're pulled over or whatever, something like that. So that's how I've known about lean and studying the information about the do not detain list. And then I told you guys a story about the sister who woke me up years ago in the city of Detroit named Paula. At the time, she was working with the Nubian Nation of Moors. Also found out years later, a friend of mine, through a friend of his, he's close to, I know the guy as well, knew a guy named Ben Navid, who would speak at these same meetings. He told me was actually Paula's brother, which I had no idea. And I said, I remember I used to go up to him at the end of the meetings years ago. I used to thank him. He used to come with real good energy. He was high powered. He used to be very inspirational. When they woke me up for the first time when I attended these private meetings by invitation only. So I actually, through a couple friends of mine, I ran into him years later through one of my friends I happened to be just hanging out with, and they went over his house years ago with his former wife and daughter at the time. And I said, as soon as we opened the door, I said, hey, I recognize this guy. I said, hey, and then they kind of saw the reaction, and my friends told me, say, hey, you know everybody. And I said, hey, it's just such a small world. And I ran into the guy. So, appreciate the activists and people out there too who were on the front lines. That's how I woke up. I may have told you guys the story before. I wouldn't have known uh, through word of mouth. My sensei, my mentor, told me at the time. And there was a family that we had met many years ago. Big shout out to Terrell and Lena, by the way, at the time, that told us about the classes, me and my mentor, these classes they had on the east side. And then my mentor, he had gone to them first before I had. Then I had eventually made my way to them one weekend, and I was in search of the truth, the knowledge, and I didn't know one of the times how I was going to get back. I just had enough bus fare to get me there, but I said, God will make a way for me to get back home. And sure enough, things worked out where I was able to get back home, because during that time period, the meetings were all the way on the east side of the city, and I was living on the west side. By the way, so I just had enough fare just to get me there. And they were always on the Saturdays on the weekend at a certain time. From the little bit that I can remember, by the way, and that's these activists woke me up, and they were the Nuwabian Moors. They were working with the Hebrew Israelites. That's who her brother Ben was with. And then there was a guy named Ishmael who was with the Yamasi Moors of the Crete Nation. That was like a different faction, by the way. And I thank them for waking me up, and the people in the movement, all the people out there, by the way. So I just wanted to tell that story. It says, read these. I'm going to read some more of these comments, and I'm going to get ready to shut the video down. Curtis Gaines says, people you must uncontract from the state DMV and postal service and county voter registration, also the Social Security Administration. Yes, Curtis Gaines is absolutely right, correct. So I'll read his comment again, and this is in the chat section. He says, people you must uncontract from the state DMV and postal service and county voter registration, also the SSA, that stands for Social Security Administration. Because I remember the sister saying, and I remember Akeem went over this as well, you have to redo the SS5. There was a guy who showed how to fill out that application for free on YouTube. If you all remember Virgo Triad, she had this guy, his channel shut down. This guy named, he went by the name M. Ross some years ago, and I just discovered it, and I would have been able to download the video. He put it out there for free. And Virgo Triad, she was such an evil witch. When she came along, she had this whole channel shut down because she had a mission to try to destroy us. And it was ironic. It's her own watchdog community took her down for being a grifter. Allegedly her real name was Jamie Taylor or something like that. I learned from her biggest arch rival, April Lejeune, when she was doing videos. But this guy M. Ross showed how to correct the status dealing with the SSA administration. So I was aware of that information when I came across these webinars. That's how I can confirm this sister is advanced. She's well studied, but I can see elements of her process from other people, information that has been out for quite a while. Some elements Jonah brought forth. He may not get credit for, but I have to give credit. Jonah is responsible for that. The Minnesota court rules, that information. Jonah was instrumental in putting that out there. Also, the authentication, which is a private form of based on how you go in, how you contract, based on whatever process you're utilizing. His process is different, by the way, versus people that are doing a name change or different things. Certain things are not going to apply to certain situations. But the reason he went through the authentication, it was more private versus the process he was taking you through, because he does it where you contract with the estate. The process he was using, where you use you take the straw man account, you put that into a state. It was a 27 series at the time, and then you move that over to your 98 number, which will act as a holding company. So the authentication for that process is different than versus somebody that's going to do an apostille doing a different process. You see, so that's to show you guys my experience, how long I've been studying, dropping some knowledge for you guys to distinguish between. Doesn't mean certain processes don't work. You have to study whoever you're studying under, and sometimes stick to their formats. But you can combine certain processes. It can be a lot of extra work though, and you don't want to get confused, because it had been confusing for myself. And Jonah had even mentioned that many years ago. If you try to study too many different people's processes, you can get confused. But if you do get the basics down, you understand. We have enough now to know how properly to remove oneself. And one of the shortcuts, and the reason I told the story earlier when my cousin gave me those audios from the guy Don Mancuso, and I'm dropping something powerful for you guys. It showed another way to remove yourself through these contracts, and I still have those audios, by the way. And that's how I was going through a situation I was able to avoid many years ago with the IRS and a student loan. By the way, I won't go into the details. There's some things I know even about the Postal Service, and I think they had put me in a special category when I get my mail. I used to get a lot of junk mail, but something happened years ago because I also know a proper way how to send stuff back to the courts. That process does work, but it has to be done a certain way. And I even know what the term is called. I didn't go into details about that. Many years ago, I talked about that on these private TDA calls I was on. I was invited on in 2017, 2018. I didn't go into details about it, how I used a different technique to not contract with the courts. I learned this from Harry Fullerton years ago, who was on these 4.3 discs, because he said there's numerous laws. So there's different strategies, just like martial arts, to where you can redirect an opponent's blow, like the style of Aikido or Tai Chi teaches you to you can redirect the energy, redirect the blow. So sometimes, because the more fights you look for is the more fights you're going to get. But there's different strategies when you learn about this information. For example, how you navigate. So I know something about the Postal Service. I haven't heard any gurus going to, or people that are knowledgeable. I haven't even gone into. I want to keep a secret because I don't want them people out there messing it up. But I even know the law behind. I was explaining it to someone privately. I probably could teach it in a private class if I was decide down the road. By the way, it's a way you can use it for tickets and things of that sort. But I had a source that worked for the post office, other than one of my relatives, and told me what the term they call it, they refer to it as, but they may not be aware there's another side of it. But I have the law that gives you the authority to basically do what you're doing. So you're not doing anything illegal. It's actually, but I'm not going to go into details about that. That's something I'll have to save for Patreon or private class, private session. But very powerful though, because I noticed I started receiving less junk mail after that. So like they did something. I may have some other things I have to do because I am still in jurisdiction. I am aware that I'm not completely out yet, but there's things you can do to remove these adhesion contracts. Will bring you closer to being on the do not detain list, which that's a whole separate video, separate topic within itself. I was going to do to prove the do not detain list is real. So Peter Lay says, I have a Class A driver's license, truck driver. How do I get out of their jurisdiction? That's a good question. Look, just read the description box of my previous videos. If it's not, upload after this video, and they'll go over everything. If you want to get in touch with me, I'm not, because when it comes to certain questions, certain things I think are too public. By the way, I don't go into details about. So you have to set up a private consult. But like I said, it's up to you if you're interested. But check the description box of the video where I have the information, and that's the quickest way to get at me if you really are serious. But you got to I have my two forms of payment through Cash App or PayPal. So I may need to update, at least put a photo in there, because I know some of you guys might be wondering, is that really me, with a lot of scammers going on? But it's got to be the exact link. It's got to match the one I have in the description box of my videos. So that's the forms of payments that I take through PayPal or Cash App. Also, if you like the content that I put out and you want to donate, you want to support the channel, you want to see the channel go to the next levels, you guys want to see me talk about more high-powered information. If you guys show support like other channels out there, I've seen people out there show a lot of love to help the channel grow, share the channel, then I'll put out a lot more good content. But I only keep things at a certain level. But if I get, more support, we can get enough people to hit the Cash App, Super Chat, then you guys see me, I'll start putting out heavier information. But one of the ways, make sure you smash the like button, share the video, get out to more people. You increase the odds of that. Says Curtis Clance, Kane says you must be 100% a beneficiary. Yes, I know what you're saying. I think you may be part of that group. You might know who I'm talking about, by the way. But like I said, I'm keeping that hush hush. So thank you for respecting the privacy, not putting the name of that group of that individual out there, by the way. I'm going to read some more of the comments in the chat section before I shut things down. Crypto Cakes Cartel says fact pseudo. Okay, I went over the documentaries in the chat section. Those are the names of the documentaries. I highly recommend you check out. You can watch free on YouTube. Nothing can stop what's coming. Says no lingering contracts for the passport. Yes, if you want to get the full 5-star status. And there's a certain way. This other brother out there, I mentioned his name earlier. It appears as though he knows. He was explaining why some people who were foreign nationals were getting rejected. He knows about a separate particular office to go through, by the way. So I was going to go through, probably once I'm ready to go through that procedure, I was going to holler at him once I get my funds together, my floating rate notes, by the way. I wanted to show him some love because it seems like he had mastered it and he had showed proof about the do not detain list and things of that sort. So big shout out to that brother that's doing the work out there. El Pero says converting a promise to an order, most common conversion other than administrative courts where the resident is deemed an investor. Court registry investment bond system, creating a municipal bond. Okay, that sounds like the Chris accounts. Yep, that's what the court system. Yep. I have a video. There was not a lot of information on there because a lot of older channels are no longer around, or you don't know a lot of they say old secure party stuff from years ago. But I do have a video somewhere on one of my backup drives that talks about the Chris accounts. That's what the courts use to tap into your exemption account, and then the counties use the CAFR funds, which stands for Comprehensive Annual Financial Reports. The CAFR is what the counties use, and the courts use the CRIS accounts, the Court Registry Investment System. Yep. So that's what they use to create the municipal bond. Yep, that's why they say you always hearing they charge the bond, or where's the person being charged? Because the individual, if you're acting on behalf of the surety, your all caps name. That's what is the all caps. Oh, let's go into what is the Sestacue Trust. What is the Enlingus? By the way, it says the rules of grammar for the use of capital letters used in a name. So there's a difference between the upper and lowercase Jane Doe. Some people don't think that that's real, but there is actually rules in grammar. Think about why the court system uses legalese. So that's why I went over capitis diminutiu maxima and capitis diminutiu minima. So I have notes on that. So yes, you are correct, El Pero. That's good information. An obligation or other security of the United States. Yes, I've heard of that law. I think that's, I want to say, is that Title 18, Section 8? Let me see if I look that up. Title 18, Section 8. Okay, yep, it says obligation. That's Title 18, Section 8, talks about obligation or other security of the United States defined. The term obligation or other security of the United States includes all bonds, certificates of indebtedness, national bank currency, Federal Reserve notes, Federal Reserve bank notes, coupons, United States notes, Treasury notes, gold certificates, silver certificates, fractional notes, certificates of deposits, bills, checks, or drafts for money drawn by or upon authorized officers of the United States. And it has comma stamps and other representatives of value or whatever denomination issue under any act of Congress and cancel under United States stamps. Yep, that's so in the super chat, that comment El Pero put an obligation or other security of the United States. That's Title 18, Section 8 that I just read. That's what that. I just want to show you guys a little bit of the laws that I still remember that were important from years ago. And some people have gone over that in a webinar that I watched out there. It says, yes, common law grammar and given name as opposed to corporate grammar and legal name. Says international travel visa, peace accords, limited diplomatic immunity while on missions outside the temple to spread the good word. Okay, wow, that's a lot. It says international travel visa, peace accords, limited diplomatic immunity while on missions outside the temple to spread the good word. Oh yeah, a lot of things are encoded with the Bible. There's people out there that are aware of this. There's different humanitarian programs, projects that are out there that I learned about. By the way, it says all in good faith. Says yes, fondly hospitals and conferred patriotic nationality. Yeah, and I've heard about the hospitals were forms of nonprofits years ago. That's why some instances they have to have on the weekends. There's people that work in the medical field that have to do like volunteer work or whatever because the hospital has been privatized, from what I understand. But they're when I was learning some things from my holistic health coach, she went over education pertaining to real good information with the hospitals used to. They aren't like they used to be. They used to try to really help people, help heal people. And they've been weaponized, especially if you know what happened in more recent times. I can't talk about on YouTube, but maybe on my Rumble account, I could go into more details about that down the road. Yeah, what is a 5-star international ID? World Service Organization. It says World Passport ? Okay, I'm not aware of some of the other ones. I'm just was specifically dealing with the stars represent on the U.S. passport over here, that they do mean something. That the title of this video was "Do the passport stars mean anything?" And I was saying yes, they do. And I have a private source, and we did a webinar, and Lady Tech was in here, and she can confirm that she mentioned even in the chat section she was going to send it to my email because I told her I had trouble downloading it because my source at the time, he wanted the full version of it. We went about 4 hours. We talked about other things because some people are in the private and they can't really go public, but they'll try to help out. He wanted to confirm that those stars do mean something. Also, I mentioned James C. Lovett. You can look this up on YouTube. He did a video. I typed in James C. Lovett passport stars. That's what I put in the search engine. And it pulls up his video he did at the top, says 5-star passport info breakdown of each level. And he has, after the semicolon, sent to me anonymously. So let's take a closer look. And I remember when he put that video out. So that confirms, that's just another source to confirm, that the stars do mean something, by the way. Just for those out there. And that's why I went over some of the other information. And some of you guys in here in the chat section confirmed about removing yourself. I've given you guys some real powerful jewels in this video if you're paying attention and you have your eyeglasses on, by the way. So El Perro says, look up Gary Davis, the man with no country. There were many men throughout history of the same concept, yet here we are this day, his day, and people still believe they need ID. Okay, in case I forget, probably best maybe just shoot me that in the email so I can bookmark it or reference, by the way. So I don't really go back and watch my own videos that much, very rarely. But send me an email if you can. If you're still watching El Perro, it should be listed in the chat section after the video uploads or my previous videos, and send me the guy Gary Davis, because I might forget to look the guy up that you're mentioning. I can try to check out his work. Says, ever heard of private credentials? How about merits? See the etymology of merits. Okay, I need to look that up because I know the words are important, by the way. They're using a lot of trickery, a lot of deception. He says, who needs credits? Laugh out loud. Working on a Tesla. Darren Gill says, at Dorsey, thank you. You're welcome, Darren. Appreciate you joining. El Perro says, Homeland Security reference number. Apply for misdescription, not a citizen or resident. American state national limited diplomatic immunity. Now, I don't know what you mean by limited diplomatic immunity. There's, what I understand, they're supposed to be full. But certain things, I don't really go into details too often because I think some things are too heavy and people are doing different processes out there. So I don't know if that's from a particular process. But from what I know, you want the full. If you do have the passport, you still can get the full 5 stars, even if you don't have the have that. But some say some processes they don't use the passport at all. They use something else or a different method. But the key is removing the contracts, because my source told me the State Department, the reason they issue a 3, 4, or 5 stars is they can see how you're operating, and based on the level of stars, that will determine how far in the jurisdiction you are. That's why the majority of people have the 3 stars. Like when I looked at a friend of mine, he had shared, allowed me to look at, and I told him about it. But like I said, he's still on the fence about this information. I told him this is the only thing he's missing. He's very smart, one of the smartest people in the world that I know. I told him he would literally be on the level of Yusavelle and Jonah with this, because his vocabulary level is immaculate. He can speak multiple languages, but he's just missing this information. Sometimes, there's a saying, you could be a jack of all trades and a master of none, but you don't want to be so smart that you're so stupid at the same time. Because I told him down the road, this is going to determine, in his discipline of emergency preparedness, it complements it very well. If you're involved in survival prepping, this information, you need this information, because a lot of those people don't understand. They're operating in the public. They're co-mingling. They want to fight the government. There's a correct way to properly remove yourself and have the amenities afforded to you as the beneficiary. Without fighting. See, the more, one guy who was part of a motorcycle gang years ago told me, he said, the more fight that you look for, the more fight that you're going to get. So I told him, I'm not trying to fight. You want your paperwork, your documents to show, pull up in the system to fight for you. The pen, the ink pen is mightier than the sword. The contracts, always understand with the police, just comply. You can always come back on them your day in court. You can always come back and sue or go after the judge or go after the court. The pen is mightier than the sword. It may seem like a lot, too much, but if you felt they violated your rights or did something, remember the pen is always mightier than the sword, because we live in a society operating through contracts. In law, the contract is king. So one must remove certain contracts. It's very important. And I've gone over that. Did a video, even maybe helped empower people who are more advanced than myself. I said to some people, I was one of the first ones out there who talked about contract removal. I did a whole video talking about adhesion contracts, and I listed the driver's license and marriage license. I did that a while ago. Just saying, just putting it out there. So, and it's still up, still on my channel. You can go back and watch it. Very powerful information. If you read between the lines, nothing can stop us, says XRP is about to go crazy. The case is almost over. Big facts. Yes, hopefully that's the case. That's what I hear. Yep, that's facts. Nothing can stop what's coming, says. That is true about the U.S. Treasury. They didn't have enough manpower to get the RV going on. Okay, I didn't know what was going on behind the scenes. I didn't know anything about the manpower, but that's what a banker, she told me, I spoke to privately, and that's separate from another banker that I knew in the Ohio area, that confirmed to me that the dinars were real, that she was holding some. And she used to work or still did work at a particular bank. And she had, both these bankers had securities licenses, and the other banker had credentials in other areas that I had recognized when I read her bio on I forget what's the name of that site, that job site. They're trying to turn it into a social media. What's it called? It's not Indeed. I forget the name. What's the name of that job site where people network? Where they've tried to turn it into basically like a social network site. But that's neither here nor there. But that's where I discovered the other banker that I spoke with. She had amazing credentials and confirmed to me at the time. She told me the U.S. Treasury was the holdup. I don't know if they still are, but that's what she stated. And she stated on numerous occasions. And what's ironic is one of my same source who told me about the passport also mentioned that to me as well privately. He said the same thing. So that's two different people. Juan Carlos says, what's the endorsement number? I'm not sure what you're referring to, Juan Carlos. If you're still watching, what's your question? What's the endorsement number? What you're asking about. Brian B says, hey, Keith, Crypto Cakes Cartel says, Okay, says hashtag XRP. Says nothing can stop us. Says here's a jewel for you. You must go down to the county clerk of where you live and claim the name. By not doing so, you're allowing your property to be abandoned. I think you mean abandoned. Yep. Yes, I've heard that before. That is true. All caps name says sorry about the autocorrect killing me. Nothing can stop what's coming. Says by claiming the all caps name with the county clerk, you can stop all foreclosures. Okay, it says True and Divine says, does the 5-star mean anything? I already went over the majority of the topic of that in this video. True and Divine. If you're still watching, you have to go back, watch the replay, go back and check out the replay of this video entirely. And I gave different examples, by the way, but yes, it does mean something. I went over that already. The 3 stars means you're doing business still as a U.S. citizen. 4 stars means you still have contracts that are still lingering. The 5 stars is full diplomatic immunity. You're out. And the State Department, my source told me, can see. It's just determines in their records that they can see how you're operating. It's a caste system and the status. And the caste system comes out of England. It's a ranking system. So it's not, those stars aren't just on the passport to look pretty. No, what people are thinking, those stars have a meaning. So but if you go back and look at the video, listen to it, watch this again, True and Divine, I talk about a little bit more where you can connect the dots. Says El Perro says, I'll see if I can find a direct contract with Bureau of Consular Affairs. Says, greetings at Brian GT. Brian B says GTSY brother. El Perro says you too. Says Dre Mills says link in. Crypto Cakes Cartel says my friend do not have an all caps name. Does she still need to go through the process? We would need more information. Like, is your friend, is she foreign? Is she naturalized? Is she born in another country? Things of that sort. Because what happens when a lot of immigrants, when they come over here, they don't know they're doing the opposite. They're trying to actually become citizens in the jurisdiction. They're actually in a right status when we're kind of doing the opposite. If you read between the lines, said a lot right there. But we would need to know that type of information, by the way. True and Divine says, thank you. You're welcome, brother. Appreciate it. Thanks for joining. Brian B says 18 USC 1342 fictitious all cap name. Claim your status on the land record is protected under the 14th or under the 4th Amendment, excuse me. Yes, because the land records is in a different jurisdiction, by the way, because that deals with common law, not because the courts and stuff, they're using a lot of statutory law based off of Admiralty Maritime. Maritime is law of the seas. You want to get put back on the land. The land law supersedes that, by the way. Crypto born in Chicago, Chicago American lineage. Okay, that's what's up. Well, it looks like I read you guys, majority of you guys, comments, chats. Hopefully I clarified, I answered the question in this video. I want to thank you guys for joining. You're welcome. Make sure you share this video, like this video, thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to the channel at Dorsey's Resource, you can find me on Twitter, on Facebook, on Rumble, at Dorsey's Resource. I'm on minds.com. What other app? I'm on Truth Social. By the way, I'm on Parler at Dorsey's Resource. The link should be in the description box under the video. Those are my social media to follow me. I'm on the gram, of course, Twitter, once again. So if you guys like the work that I do, definitely support the channel. You're welcome to share this video. The marathon will continue. Legends never die. They stay in our hearts. Until next time, guys, peace, everyone. Blessings. Thank you, Brian B. Facts, Dorsey. Thanks for the stream. You too. Thank you for joining. You're welcome. I'm out, guys. Everyone, peace. Have a good one. Arrivo Dorsey. Adios.